Good morning, I'm Frances Shannon. I'm Acting Vice-Chancellor of the University of Canberra, and I'm talking to Michelle Grattan this morning about the week in politics. Good morning, Michelle.
Hi, Frances.
Well, it's been another interesting week. Malcolm Turnbull announced major reforms to Australia's national security arrangements with the creation of a Home Affairs Department, which is going to be headed up by Peter Dutton. Some people see this as driven by politics. What do you think?
I think it is substantially driven by politics. Peter Dutton, of course, is being touted as a future leader of the Liberals. He's a very important conservative figure, and Malcolm Turnbull does need his continued support. And he has been pressing for this department for quite a long time. Now, Malcolm Turnbull would say that it's not political, that he's been interested in this sort of rearrangement, but nevertheless, there hasn't been strong advice for the department. It's been really a matter of the experts saying, well, the present arrangements are working well, so why change? So therefore I think that people reading this as being political are not too far off the mark.
Yes, it would appear like that, and there's certainly been a lot of commentary. Experts have criticised the move, saying it's unnecessary, and they also have been saying that it could lead to less contestable advice going to government in this area.
It's always wise in these things, I think, to have 2 or 3 or 4 strong ministers who have a stake in areas, not to allow advice to be too centralised. Another argument against this shake-up, which is going to take into next year to be completed, is that while the agencies involved, like ASIO and the police, who will be moving from coming under one department to coming under the new one, while they're trying to do their day job, as it were, in a difficult environment, trying to make sure that plots are foiled and so forth, they'll have to give attention to what's a big bureaucratic shake-up.
Yes, it will be big. Will the public be convinced by the government's line that the new arrangements are there to help keep Australians, keep us all safe?
Normally, national security is supposed to be an issue that naturally favours the coalition, but I'm not sure that this is the case so much these days. Firstly, there's general bipartisanship, so the coalition can't distinguish itself much from Labor, and although Labor's cynical about this move, I think in the end it's likely not to try and frustrate it. And also because all the initial analysis has been in terms of this is all about politics, I think many people will be a bit sceptical, will say, well, of course they're just doing this for political reasons, and therefore will be rather dismissive of it all. And also beyond that, things involving machinery of government changes don't really resonate very much with the average punter who's interested in much more tangible things that affect them, like cost of living and energy prices.
Yeah, and this is far from that. So on to a different topic then. A second Green Senator, Larissa Waters, has resigned in the space of a week, having found out that she was ineligible for Parliament because she held Canadian citizenship. How could the Greens have been so careless about all of this?
Well, may you ask. And I think their leader, Richard Di Natale, really is asking himself the same question, because he's ordered a review of their processes. These senators, in a way, you certainly feel some sympathy with them. In Larissa Waters' case, she left Canada as a baby, and her parents had only been there living, working and studying temporarily. They were Australians. So she really never thought that it was a problem. She thought that at 21 she had the choice of deciding whether to become a Canadian citizen, and she hadn't made that decision. But apparently the law had changed, and anyway, she is a Canadian citizen. She's going to get rid of that citizenship pretty quickly, but it's certainly driven her out of the Senate. So it's a case of the Greens' processes failing, and also the individuals, of course. Everyone knows, if they're running for Parliament, that they've got to be in compliance with the provision of having only Australian citizenship. So, given it's so important, do you think you'd check and you'd get a lawyer to make sure that you got it right?
Will this make any difference to the working numbers in the Senate when the government comes back to sit next month?
No, because the government has said it will pair the senators who've fallen foul of the Constitution. I think that there's a general feeling that what goes around comes around, and if you don't do this sort of pairing in this situation, well, when something happens to a government senator, then others can play tough, so the numbers won't be affected.
So it will be played fairly?
Yes.
Should the Constitution be changed on this matter, or is it a reasonable rule to have?
I think it's a reasonable rule. I think that it is designed to prevent conflicts of interest, of loyalties, and that does seem to me a quite sensible provision. And the idea that because some people haven't been able to meet a perfectly well-known and simple provision, that therefore you should change it, which would require a referendum, how many millions of dollars, and it would probably lose anyway. It's just that I think is excessive knee-jerk reaction. Much better for the parties to have provisions where they really make sure that their candidates have gone through the required hoops.
That they tick all the boxes and
Well, not just tick them, but check them.
Check them, yeah. The New South Wales Liberals are holding a convention this weekend on their rules. Now, to the average punter, this would sound a bit arcane, but does it have wider political implications?
Well, yes, it does, because Tony Abbott is making a big play for a change of rules which would mean plebiscites for the choice of all candidates and direct election for party officers. This is in the highly factionalised New South Wales Party, where the moderates are dominant, together with a part of the soft right of the party, and of course the Conservatives are unhappy about this. It's also true that while it's a factional play, that the way that branch is conducted is pretty outrageous. It really is in the grip of lobbyists and factional chiefs and so on. Now, if Tony Abbott managed to get the numbers at this convention, and no one's sure of the numbers, then that would seem as a big victory for him, and I think he'd be much emboldened. Malcolm Turnbull so far is playing it carefully. I think he is in favour of plebiscites, but wants a more restrained system, if you like, more checks and balances within that general plebiscite system, and not as extensive change. So we'll see how this works out at the weekend, but it's another episode in the Tony v Malcolm continuing boxing match.
It would appear to be. Thank you very much, Michelle, and we'll talk again next week.
Thank you, Francis.